Hello and welcome to VistaTalks, interesting discussions with interesting people from all around the world. I am your host for today, María Roa, and I am happy to introduce you to Jennifer Vela Valido. Jennifer is a highly accomplished localization solution strategist with over 15 years of experience in the industry. Currently, she serves as the Localization Quality Program Manager at Spotify, where she leads innovative localization strategies and quality management initiatives. Jennifer's extensive background includes roles in vendor management, linguistic quality solutions, and academic research, culminating in a Ph.D. in localization quality management. She is also an active member of several industry organizations, including Women in Localization and ISO. Jennifer's dedication to advancing the field and her passion for sharing knowledge makes her an inspiring figure in the localization community. So I don't think we could have a better person to talk to today. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for the invitation to talk today.
No, thank you for being here. Well, I think we should start by talking about your journey in the localization industry and what inspired you to pursue a career in this field. Can you let us know about it?
Yes, sure. So I think as many of us, what we all love is communication. I think we all at some point we just want to help people communicate each other. We want to make this world a world where we can connect, right? And that's why inspired me to study translation. So I started as a freelance translator, translated video games, which is something I really, really loved. It was probably one of the funniest moments of my life. From there, I think curiosity has been something that has been always driven my life. So whenever there was something new, something I wanted to explore, I changed a little bit in my career. So from the freelance translation and then went to um, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, meaning I wanted to create a translation agency. So I did a little bit of studying, and with two colleagues, we created a boutique translation agency back in the Canary Islands, where I'm from. And after some years, I wanted to study something else. I wanted to do something else. And I wanted to know how big companies did localization and translation. I wanted to understand how things were done on the other side of the fence. So I had an opportunity to work for Expedia as a localization quality manager for Spanish. I left Spain, I went to London, and for 10 years, I was there learning all what is it to learn about quality management for Spanish. And from there, I then see the opportunity to continue growing and continue not looking at just how Spanish was done, but how you could manage several languages. And that led me to my role at Spotify, where I do quality program management for the more than 72 languages that we do, plus innovation initiatives. And in between, in case there was not enough, I did teaching, I did research, I did my PhD, and I volunteered. So that's a little bit about my life.
I think that's crazy. 72 languages, that's a lot. But I think it's very interesting that you did start in translation and then went into localization because for many people that we talk to, whenever they did get to this localization industry, they didn't even know what localization was. I was one of them. But it looks like you were directed towards this industry. And now you're here. You're the Localization Quality Program Manager at Spotify, 72 languages. So could you give us an overview of how Spotify approaches localization and ensures this high quality translation across its global platform?
Yes. So it's more than 72, so I think exactly 73 languages. Um, and the first thing that makes us different, and one of the reasons I chose Spotify to work with is because quality is at the core of the company. So it is at Spotify, we do care a lot about giving the best experience possible to the user. So we don't look into the way our product, our services are all about connecting, are all about people being able to connect to each other through music. And for that, you also need localization. So because it's in our core, it means that localization is embedded in the whole company. So it's not only us, the localization team, but it's also the marketing team, the UX research, the designers. We all look at quality in a very holistic way. So that is what it helps us. So quality is not just seeing if translation is correct, but whether it resonates with the market, whether it's culturally relevant, whether it creates the feelings and the belonging that we all pursuing. And all of that makes us then to look at quality at very different perspectives and work together to get that quality. I think that's one of the things that make us special in that way.
I think that's really interesting. First of all, would you say connecting people through music? I think that's something that has gone not only through generations, but through cultures, like you are saying. Because, for instance, it might sound weird, but I do dance through African rhythms, and that has led me to meet some people from different cultures and eat their food, go to their countries, visit other cultures. So connecting people through music for me, it's something huge. So thank you for that. I mean, I think you're completely right. And another very important thing you said is you were talking about quality. It's not just translation. It's belonging, it's cultural relevance. I mean, all that is localization. And that's super important. How do you do that? I mean, how do you show that through Spotify?
Through many ways. I think what we have found is that there is not just one definition of what quality is or uh, what a good quality should be. There are different perspectives depending on how you're looking at it. So as we mentioned, right, for us, good translation quality is that the translation is correct. But then to add, we add the user experience. So what our users tell us about how they like the way we communicate with them when we do marketing campaigns, when actually how the app talks to them. So we are also listening to our users. We're also listening to our marketing teams, our experts in the different markets, but also our experts in the music of the different markets,
Hmm.
and how they tell us that those users, those markets want to be spoken. So in the middle of all of that, we are the localization is there. So we're listening to all these different voices on what they feel and what they need and what they think we should be offering to the users. And then we take all of those and we make the magic. We turn feedback into metrics, into data analysis. And from that, we're able to establish, okay, so what is missing? What do we have to improve? How do we improve it? And then we go into the different initiatives that we will do to either improve quality, measure quality, or to see what other ways we can do to do things in a different way, just to test different initiatives.
Yeah, and I bet that when you do this, you probably found lots of challenges. I mean, because not everything is easy. Looking at data, sometimes it's crazy. So what would you say are some of the key challenges that you face, and how did you address them when you found them?
So yes, when you want to do something holistically, it sounds great, but also it adds a lot of complexity because then you need to balance many different things. So that is challenging for sure. Like having this holistic approach to quality makes it more complex. And then the key challenges that we have, one is very interesting, is cultural relevance, because cultural relevance is very difficult to measure. It is quite subjective sometimes. So when we want to measure quality relevance, we have to be quite careful and quite smart on how that can be, how can we get that information, that data. So cultural relevance is very tricky because it's quite subjective. So at some point, we actually have to decide who is going to own the direction in which we want to go. And in our case, is our markets, is our music teams and our local markets, which are the ones deciding this is what is relevant for this country and this culture, and this direction we want to go. But it's culture is very complex anyway, so that's a interesting thing, especially because we have that many languages. Then the languages that we have, that are low resource languages, those are complex by its own definition. There are less people that speak that language. In some cases, those languages might not have a defined or a definition of what is good or bad. Like, is this correct or is incorrect? We don't know, because maybe there isn't like an official body that tell us what is correct and incorrect. So it is the users deciding whether they like it or they don't like it. So again, it's very difficult to balance, because in a discussion, you could have two different native speakers, two different users. One can tell you, I love it. The other can tell you, I hate it. I don't talk that way.
Mm.
So that balance is also quite
What
tricky.
what do you do in that situation?
Several things, but actually what we try is to get the input from as many people as possible. So we try to balance the input from our linguists. So I haven't mentioned this, but to all this effort, of course, we need to have a team of language specialists. So for each of the 73 languages, we do have a language specialist who is also our go-to person, right? And we know that person is going to be the expert in what is correct. And we will balance that with the feedback that we get from other our markets. So our marketing team, they're also native speakers. So we also balance that with their feedback. And then we try to do UX research surveys. So we add some other results and audits to try to see how the users, the native speakers, are interacting with the content. So we are looking at all these different types of signals to see, okay, is it correct? Is it well received? Is it interesting? And with that, we make a decision. But yes, in some cases, what we see is that because maybe all low resource languages are also different generations, it is very
Mm-hmm.
difficult to decide what is going to be the tone and the tone of voice and the way we want to address, not just in a certain language in a specific country, but also for what generation we want to address. So something that sounds great, amazing, catchy for Gen Z maybe sound too informal, too even rude for other generations, right? And that's that actually I think is one of the most interesting challenges. We need to find a way to have a unique voice that is
Mm-hmm.
liked by different generations that have different preferences. So that's another challenge that is very interesting in our case, because of course we are addressing everybody and we want everybody to feel and to like the way we talk to them, but it's challenging.
My God. So, culture, law research, languages, and these balance, from generations. But this last one that you're talking about, is it because different generations do still like the same music?
Hmm, that is a very interesting question. There are, of course, different tastes. So, different generations, they normally have like they tend to
Their
favor
own
the
taste,
music.
yeah.
Yeah, they tend to say that they tend to favor the music that they listened in a certain time, and they keep being loyal. And that is different depending on the generation that even the year that you were born. So that is true on the music part, but then it's also true in the way you talk. So as I said, we see that, maybe certain like older generations, well, my generation, I'm going to be the older generation here. We do prefer maybe things to be correct. We prefer things to be done, in the correct way. While other generations, Gen Z, they don't care if a word is not exactly how it should be. They actually rather prefer to just have the same, to feel that it's a friend talking to you, and maybe there is like a new word, it's a new thing that is in fashion. In theory, it's not correct, but you don't care because that's the way you talk. So therefore, is this balance of what do we want to do? Do we want to be very correct and straightforward, or do we want to be catchy? We want to be even trendy. Do we actually want to get and use some of new expressions, new words that are sometimes very edgy? And that's the balance that is very difficult to get.
That's crazy, because then do you have to customize your communications to depending on age, gender, and like music taste, blah blah. So like if you do that, your communications would have to be so different. You would have to make so many different variables
It
that
would
it
be
could be,
very granular.
it
It would
would
be
be,
very
yeah,
granular.
too granular to be able
Yeah.
to handle it. So, I mean, I guess at one point you need to make the cut, right? I mean, you need to make a
Yes.
decision.
So it is possible with marketing because, for example, if you already have a campaign in mind, you already have an idea of what is the target, who is the target of that campaign. So you can decide to play a little bit more with that. But we cannot do that with the translation of the user interface. We cannot have different user interfaces.
That's,
So that's the
yeah,
other part.
that's what I was thinking about. I'm like, you can do it with
Yes,
messages whenever you send in an email campaign, for instance,
yes.
but you cannot do it with the app.
Exactly. So that's the part I think we have been able to find a good balance in general. Again, there are some languages that is a little bit more difficult than that. But I would say that if you look at our biggest campaign, which is Wrapped, which we've always launched at the end of the year. So last year we did the Wrapped campaign, which is this initiative that we share with all the users from Spotify, where we actually share with them their summary of recap of their behavior and what they have been listening to in Spotify. So that is our biggest campaign, is launching all the languages that we have at the same time. And I think it's a really good example of how we have been able to still create something that is very unique, very catchy, very original and creative. And that is well received by our users and even social media.
Hmm. So, how all these efforts that you do, how all these effective localization that you're working on contribute to Spotify overall user experience and global reach? How do you think that it's, like helping your user experience?
I think on the one hand, because the localization team is embedded. As I said, we are embedded in the whole team, even to the planning stages. So at the very beginning, when all the teams are deciding which new releases, new functions, new features they want to do, we are already there. So we can also act not just as the afterthought of we
Hmm.
are now going to localize, but we actually have a very important role on um, doing a little bit of consultancy and explaining, okay, is this feature, is this something that do we have to take a look at the naming of it? Do we have to look at how it's going to be perceived or it's going to be received in different languages and cultures? So having being able to help the different teams at the planning stage is so useful because then whatever is launched afterwards already has the localization in the and the internationalization mindset solved and resolved. So definitely being not just collaborating, but also being involved at the very beginning. Secondly, we do collaborate as partners with the other teams. So again, localization is in Spotify is not a afterthought, something that you would do at the very end, but it's a shared effort. So we have very close relationships with UX designers, with content designers, with of course the programmers, and every single team involved in creating something new, so that it's a shared effort. So in some cases, we are able to explain them, right, how certain things are going to be easier or more difficult depending on how they design the work. And that is making us, all of us, being much more agile and more united as a team. So localization and quality are in the mind of everybody working at Spotify in a different degree.
There's something in my head from something that we were talking before about the communication. Sorry, I am a marketing person, so I keep thinking about all these messages and communication and how to adapt depending on everything, language, culture, whatever. But then I'm thinking music is so big that is it sometimes that some super famous singers might have also their own, let's say, vocabulary, like, but I think maybe Taylor Swift and their Swifters has like their own slang, and you might also want to adapt that to your messages whenever you're writing emails or whatever. Am I going too far? I mean, sorry, that was just in my head.
That can happen. And actually, that's a really good point. Something that we also do precisely because, as you said, we do have a very strong linguistic team, but
Mhm.
we also have a very strong music team or market
Mm,
music team. And
okay.
those teams that we have in every country, as I said, they are the experts on the music of that country, and they are the experts on the terms and the slang, the music terms and the music slang using that. So precisely one of the things that we do to get the strengths of both types of knowledge is that in marketing campaigns that we see that is actually very valuable. After all the work has been done by the localization team, then it goes to the we call them local market reviewers, and they are the ones that help us with this, to confirm that this is the style, the tone of voice that they want for the market, but also in some cases they might make some tweaks precisely to make sure that we get to the slang, or we get to the certain terms that are specific for that market, for that language. And that's how we are taking the strengths of both types of teams. We have the experts in what is correct, what is a correct translation, what is a nice and natural tone of voice and style, and then we have our local market reviewers that help us, give us the final touch, the part that allows us to go from something that is good to something that is very
Exceptional.
creative and exceptional. Yes.
Okay, sorry. That was in my head. I was just thinking because whenever this Taylor Swift thing went on in the Spanish TV, even in the news, in the Spanish news, we had all these people, online, and they were talking and they were making up all these terms that I had never heard before. And I was thinking like, where maybe those, were Arab. So yeah, I just wanted to ask about it. I mean,
Yeah. And it makes sense because exactly that's the part where that kind of knowledge, right? We might probably not have it in our glossaries or our TMs or our style guides, but we are able to know and to use them thanks to this collaboration between our linguists and our music experts in the local markets.
yeah, no, 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 that makes sense. Thank you for that. Uh, so, I mean, I guess that it's something, I mean, the music world is something that is innovating and changing absolutely every day. So it's the localization world. Is there any significant trends and innovations that you see shaping the future of localization and translation quality management? Specifically, if it could be in the music world, that would be great. But I mean, I think the translation and localization world is changing rapidly enough.
Yeah. There is something very interesting, which is so AI is everywhere. So I cannot not mention not
No, no, no,
AI.
sure.
But this is very interesting because AI has always been used in Spotify and has always been
Hmm,
actually one of the strongest um, features or tools basically that Spotify use for music. So for long time ago, like the different algorithms that are used in Spotify to suggest users what kind of music they might like. So all the different ways to discover music that we have at Spotify, they are powered by some kind of AI.
okay.
So the use of AI is not a new thing at all in Spotify, but it's very interesting because that means that we do have teams that are experts in AI for I would say specifically in terms of music algorithms, creating playlists, trying to detect trends, for example, trying to actually foresee musical trends. So all of these is something that Spotify has been done, and our teams in machine learning and AI are quite strong. But until we actually saw that AI and large language models, could be also be used for translation and language related tasks, um, that's something that then we all thought, well, but this is amazing because we already have some teams with technical knowledge on AI and machine learning. How can we collaborate together to see what can we do, how we can maybe use part of that knowledge and see how this could be tested for language related tasks. So there are a lot of things going on. I think everybody's researching. We are also researching many different things, many different uses of AI, but specifically on the translation world, or quality management, I think we are all now thinking is if whether AI will be able to help us to automate some quality management tasks, maybe quality review or quality evaluation. This is very in the early stages. I think nobody has the answer at the moment. Nobody really knows, and we have to test. But it could be interesting if it means, as I mentioned, because we do have several languages and because we do like this possibility of being as localized or hyper localized as possible.
Mm-hmm.
If with the use of AI, we can potentially maybe release in more languages, are we able to have even more languages because AI is allowing us to have better access or easy access to low resource languages or to improve the quality of what we have? To me, that's very exciting. If we can translate it in more languages and control the quality or improve the quality faster and in more languages, that would be great. Because if we're saying that we would all love to see an app that talks exactly the way you talk, right? And how difficult that is to do it in an efficient way, maybe AI can help us to do it in a more scalable way. So potentially we can go into more flavors, more variants that are much more difficult to do in a manual way because it requires a lot of effort. So I think that's the part I'm very excited about. Maybe I'm a dreamer, so that's okay. I don't care. But I am very excited to experiment with it.
No, I think that's great. I mean, like I do think AI has lots of potential, let's say, but I think right now in the maybe localization and translation stages, I mean, it's very useful in the, I would say, early stages, but if you need something exceptional to the point that you guys are doing, I would say in the later stages, probably we do still need the human
In
touch,
the loop. Yes,
yeah, in the
exactly.
loop. Because
Yeah.
as you said, those music professionals, those language localization professionals, those, I mean, I think at this point in time, I don't know farther on, but at this point in time, I don't think AI yet is available to that stage. But I mean, you never know. You said you're a dreamer, but I think
Yes.
we do need that mix for now. Like in your case, for instance, of that music professional reviewing what the localization professional did and make that work exceptional. But
Hmm.
in the earlier stages, AI is very useful. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, I think it's very important to separate what is experimental and what is research and what
Yeah,
is ready for implementation. So that's why we're
100%.
saying all the work that we're doing, I am always very clear about that. We are researching. This is R&D, this is research.
Yeah,
We are trying to understand what are the limits and what are the strengths of any new technology. And it's good to be accepting, but it's also good to be a dreamer. I think that's a good combination. And I am
I
both.
agree. 100%. 100%.
So that's the part we are doing the research so that we any decision that we make it's well informed because we have done our due diligence, we have done our research, we have tested it before we just launch it and see what happens. And that's the part is like I think we will be able to see for which things we can use it and how. What is the safe way to use it? What is the efficient way to use it? And what are the limitations and the strengths? And that's the part we are now focusing on.
I think with this being accepted dreamers, is a great way to almost finish. But before we go, I want to know, is there anything you're working on that you would like to share with our audience?
We are doing a lot of things, but again, we have to wait to see the results. The part that I would love to share because we are almost ready, and we're going to be presenting this in a conference this year, so we are ready to actually give the whole information. Is that precisely last year with the large language models, and also this conversation also in terms of are large language models better than neural machine translation?
Hmm.
We actually decided to launch a huge project to test different neural machine translation engines versus large language models in our specific content types in, I think we did more than 50 languages. We actually tried to do it in as many languages as we could. So we could have data on how good they were and if depending on the content type and adjust it to our style guides, our quality levels, our
Oh.
glossaries, which were the best. So we are very excited because we decided we're going to test it and we're going to test everything. And we are going to present the results in a conference this year.
That sounds exciting. Can you say the conference name or not yet?
Not yet because we still don't know if it
Mm,
has been accepted. So we are waiting for the final word. So
okay.
we cannot say anything yet. But yes, the idea is if it's not this conference, we will see. But we're always very happy to exchange knowledge and to share data. So that's something that we're very happy to do.
That sounds super interesting, Jennifer. And I'm sure they will accept it. And we will all be there to listen to your results for sure.
I'm already doing promotion without knowing if we're gonna go, but
Well, if it's
yeah,
not this one, it will be the next one, but we will be there.
fantastic, great.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. And that's the end of today's show with Jennifer Vela Valido. Please make sure to tune in again to see and or to listen to the next VistaTalks show, where we'll be discussing more interesting topics with interesting people from all around the world. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.